I did mention earlier the beer for Havdallah. So it is interesting the way that Rambam formulates this, the allowance for beer at Havdallah, which is not the way that everybody, certainly not all of his contemporaries formulate the allowance for beer to be used at Havdallah. It's not a blanket statement, whereas bread, it's really just up to the desire and the just sort of the whim of the person doing Kiddush for Friday night. But Havdallah, there's a little bit more of an objective standard versus the bread is entirely a subjective standard. I feel like bread tonight, right? Whereas beer,
which is so fascinating, because I feel like nowadays, if you would ask people, very few people are familiar with the halacha that you could say Kiddush Friday night over bread. I know of almost no one who ever would avail themselves of that option. And it's totally preference. Mitaveh. If you're really hungry, you prefer to have the bread right away, whatever it is, go for it. And the allowance for Chamar Medina, for the local wine, which is a euphemism for other alcoholic drinks or other beverages that are consumed in that locale instead of wine or in higher proportions of wine.
Everybody, because humans drink alcohol wherever they live. That's just a human reality, right? Whether it's vodka in Russia, it's beer in Germany, it's wine in France. Every land has its alcohol. Or who knows, maybe brandy or some sort of Kirschwasser wherever you may live, right? And
the Rambam ties it to the locale, right? Some of the other poskim sort of create this two-tiered ranking. There's wine, and then there's everything else, other alcoholic drinks. And the Rambam does emphasize that the term the Talmud uses is Chamar Medina, or as he calls it, Chamar Medina Yeina, the wine of that locale, Medina Sherov Yeina Shechar, a city, a locale, a country where the majority of the wine is beer, meaning there he's using wine, more broadly.
As a metonym or a catch-all phrase for all alcoholic beverages.
So in a place where, like America, where we drink more beer than wine on average, then beer is elevated sort of to the semi-wine status.
Right. Which is just like in Sasanian Persia, where the Talmud, the Babylonian Talmud, they were more of a beer country versus Israel. Israel is and has been and probably always will be a wine country, just like France, just like Italy. Those are wine countries. Whereas
it depends on the soil, depends on the climate, what kinds of crops grow better. Mesopotamia, of course, is an ideal growing region for grain. It's a flat, fertile land. Israel is rocky and mountainous, so you grow grapevines because they'll grow anywhere.
I think this is compared to some of the contemporary opinions, this is a fairly low bar, fairly low standard to hurdle over, because some of the contemporaries argue that you can't find wine even within a day's traveling, or no grapes are grown within a day's, whatever it is, travel or whatever the length is. Whereas he says, yeah, it can be grown there. You can easily find it, but it's just a majority. We're just talking about quantity of alcohol sold, which is a much lower bar to hurdle over for the rum, which I think is great, especially as a beer person. Like, yes.
Right. And he says mutar, it's allowed. You're allowed to avail yourself of that choice.